Welcome, everybody, to the NFL Draft Geek Week 4 NFL Draft Prospect Review. I'm Brian Johannes here in the Draft Brian Studios. What we're going to do, if you're not familiar with this, is we're going to take a look at how the top NFL draft prospects did in their Week 4 college football matchups. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get started. The big story of this weekend was how these top quarterbacks we're gonna do. We got Drew Lock versus Georgia. We have Justin Herbert versus Stanford. For Drew Lock, it was a little bit of a struggle. They hosted Georgia. They lost 43-29, and Lock didn't have his best game. He had played them twice before, put up better numbers, even though they lost a couple years ago. It was a closer game. He went 23 for 48. He only completed 48% of his passes for 221 yards. He had an interception. He had two fumbles. He did rush for a touchdown, so that did help. But one of the biggest concerns I had for Locke coming into this year was his completion, his accuracy, his ball placement. He can make some, good throws. He could drive the ball downfield, but he missed way too often, and so that was one of my big concerns. And this kind of illustrated it against a good defense, an athletic defense. Probably, Georgia's the second-ranked team, one of, favorite to go back to the college football playoff, and Locke struggled. And yes, he doesn't have great talent. He doesn't have great receivers, but you would have hoped that he would have been able to, elevate those guys and get the ball to where they need it and keep them kind of a little bit closer. I mean, I don't think anyone expected Georgia or Missouri to win, but I think they would have expected Locke to maybe have a better game. Opposite of that, Justin Herbert against Stanford. Herbert played well. He completed 26 of 33 passes. That's 79% for 346 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Herbert, to me, was a guy who I was really anxious to see how he was going to do against Stanford. And it's not like Stanford has this great defense. It's not Alabama's defense. It's not, Georgia's defense. But he had kind of cleaned up for the most part against the likes of Bowling Green and San Jose State and Portland State. But even in a couple of those games, he didn't complete the ball pretty well. There was one game he threw only 50%, completed 50% of his passes. So in this game, he looked fantastic. He looked like a potential number one overall pick. He was throwing with anticipation. He was throwing with good ball placement. So even though they lost, they ended up losing 38-31. They ended up giving up a lead in this game. He still played well, and one of the knocks on Herbert was a knock that just Josh Allen had last year with not being able to get that signature win against a good team, and this is going to hurt in the eyes of some NFL teams and some scouts, but it shouldn't because Herbert played well, good enough to win. It's not his fault they lost this game. There was a fluky call and a series of events that led to it, but he played well. He played good enough to win. Let's just stay within that Stanford and Oregon game because Stanford had a couple other players, has a few players to kind of keep an eye on. KJ Costello, their quarterback, is getting a lot of hype, especially in this class that's not really the greatest. He went 19 for 26, completed 73% of his passes for 327 yards and 3 touchdowns. Big part of that was J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, the monster that is the receiver. He's been a contested catch machine. He just uses his size just to, especially in the red zone, uses his size well to just box out defenders. He went 4 catches for 84 yards and 2 touchdowns. One of those touchdowns, he literally just, was like a basketball going up for a rebound. He went in the end zone, boxed out the defender, and went up and got it. But later on in the game, he showed his route running ability. He was able to create separation and set up the route into an easy touchdown. And, you watched the clip right away and it looked like that he just ran to an open spot. But when you kind of were able to focus just on him, he showed that nuanced route running that was that I've been kind of looking for when I watch him. Rice Love was kept in relative check, 19 carries for 89 yards and a touchdown. Love hasn't had the greatest senior season so far. He's been held in check a couple games, and 89 yards is still good, but you would have liked to maybe see him have a little bit better of a game. All right, let's start hitting through some of these games. Nebraska got demolished 10 by Michigan, 56-10. Shea Patterson went 15 for 22 for 120 yards and a touchdown. He's starting to, with all the hype, especially me, I had him as my number one quarterback in this class. That's not going to last very long. He's been okay, but he hasn't been great. The star of this game for the Wolverines was Kerryon Higdon, 136 yards and a touchdown. He showed a lot in this game. He showed burst, he showed speed, he showed good contact balance. Higdon is, right now, Michigan's best player on offense. And behind an offensive line that's been a little shaky so far this season, he had a huge game and was a reason why Michigan was so dominant on offense. Ohio State cruised against Tulane 49-6. Dwayne Haskins, in his first year as a starter, has quietly become a lot of people's favorite quarterback in this class. He's only a redshirt sophomore, and he's only, started this year, but he went 21 for 24, 304 yards, 5 touchdowns. A couple of those touchdowns went to Paris Campbell, the receiver. He had 8 catches for 147 yards and 2 touchdowns. Campbell's definitely a speed guy, a speed threat down the field. There's not a whole lot of nuance to his game. He's just going to beat you down the field, and that's exactly what he did in this game. Getting those, using that speed and that acceleration to beat defenders and make those catches. LSU had a kind of a tough, close game against Louisiana Tech. They won 38-21. The big star of this game was Devin White, the outside linebacker, inside linebacker. I think he's going to be a weak side linebacker in the NFL. He had 11 tackles, a sack, a forced fumble, and then he even had 3 passes defended. So he's shown his complete game. I have him as a top 5 player in this class if he declares. So he showed the ability to come down and stop the run. He showed the ability to go sideline to sideline. He showed his playmaking ability with sacks and a fumble recovery. And that fumble recovery, he just reached down, picked it up with one hand, and took off running with it. But then he also showed his coverage ability, being able to run with receivers, tight ends, and to play the ball in the air with those 3 passes defended. The late night game here that I was super excited to see was Arizona State versus Washington, and Washington won that 27-20. And N'Keal Harry was the guy that I've been a huge fan of, and he's had some big games, he's had some big plays. He was kept in check by this Washington defense, and I didn't think Arizona State was going to win, but I want to see how he did against NFL corners, Byron Murphy, and at corner, and he's a guy that's getting a lot of hype as one of the best senior cornerbacks. Taylor Rapp is my number 2 rated safety. Harry was kept in check. 5 catches, 20 yards. His longest catch was 5 yards. So, not the best showing for Harry. He just couldn't get free, couldn't make a play. So it's a little bit of a concern there. Not a huge concern. I'm not going to be like, oh, Harry's not very good. But you would have liked to see him have a better game against better competition. West Virginia won 35-6 over Kansas State. The Will Grier David Sills connection was on full effect here. Grier went 25 for 35, 71% completion percentage for 356 yards, 5 touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions, so that there was that. Sills caught 3 of those touchdowns. He had 73 yards total on 10 catches. Grier's been the guy that I still need to break down Herbert this season. But so far, Grier's been the guy that I've liked the most. He's shown the ability to throw with good ball placement. He's been able to just set up receivers with the ball where they can get it. And he's a guy that I don't know if he's going to be a top 10, top 20, even a first-round pick. But he's been the quarterback this year that I've liked the best. Sills, former quarterback, is continuing to show his his route running ability, playmaking ability. According to the Draft Network's Kyle Krabs, who was at this game in the press box, it sounds like the NFL draft scouts that were there were, raving about David Sills. And he's a guy that I think he's got a lot of potential. Once again, I don't think he's going to be a first round pick, but I think you get him. He could be like a Cooper Kupp type guy, a guy that goes in that third round, maybe fourth round, route runner, and then he gets drafted to a team and everyone can't stop talking about him. One of the big upsets of the week was Kentucky winning 28-7 over top 15 ranked Mississippi State. The star of this game was Kentucky running back Benny Snell. He had 25 carries for 165 yards and all 4 of Kentucky's touchdowns. Snell's, kind of a bowling ball of a runner, and he's going to, bowl you over, and he's got speed and power. He showed that power and speed on this. He in the goal line, he was able to generate the power, push the pocket, push the line, and get in. But he also showed the speed too, and he's able to break a few long runs off, show that burst, show that acceleration, be able to hit some home runs. He'll be an interesting prospect come the NFL draft just because he's not much of a pass catcher, more of a power back, and we're seeing those guys kind of not have as big of an effect anymore. So it'll be really curious to see how he does going forward. Wisconsin ended up coming back late, winning 28-17 over Iowa. The one player that I was kind of watching there was Noah Fant. He's kind of struggled with drops this year, but he had a couple big plays. 3 catches, only 29 yards, but he did have 2 touchdowns. He had a long touchdown, a longer-ish touchdown where he kind of pushed towards he was out of the slot, pushed towards the sideline, and then broke inside for an easy catch. And then along the goal line, he kind of was able to go down and get a low ball on a on a kind of a rollout pass. So Fant shows that playmaking ability. He hasn't had a great year, and here's a guy I have in my top 5. One of the best tight ends I've seen off of last year's tape. So it'll be really curious to see if he can, now they're getting in conference play, if he can kind of snap out of that funk that he's in. Ole Miss took care of Kent State 38-17. Ole Miss is, has one of the best receiving cores, and they're on full display. DK Metcalf is probably the guy at the highest ceiling. He had 5 catches for 102 yards and a touchdown. He had a 41-yard one-handed catch touchdown. It seems week in and week out that Metcalf is coming up with these big-time plays down the field. It seems like the start of every game, he makes a move and then gets free down the field for an easy touchdown. Here, he was able to show the concentration and ball tracking skills to make that one-handed catch. I still want to see him create separation on his routes other than just running by guys. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on. A.J. Brown had 7 catches for 96 yards. He had a nice, tough catch down the sideline, tracking the ball, catching it over his shoulder. DeMarcus Lodge had 6 catches for 81 yards. Dawson Knox had 2 catches for 79 yards, including a 45-yard catch. And then the last game that I'm going to highlight is Buffalo versus Rutgers. Buffalo won 42-13 and continues Rutgers' big slide. Anthony Johnson and Tyree Jackson are probably your top 2 prospects in this game. Tyree Jackson, the quarterback, 6'7", big, strong arm guy, went 14 for 28. So not the best completion percentage game for him. 263 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's got a lot of potential. He's just still very raw. One of his long passes was to Anthony Johnson, who had just 2 catches, but for 101 yards and a touchdown. Another guy that's got a good catching radius, good contested catcher, he can catch it in traffic. But you gotta wonder, is he gonna separate? And that could have been an issue here against the Big Ten team in Rutgers, even though they're one of the worst Big Ten teams, just going up and making those catches. Another player to kind of keep an eye on is Khalil Hodge, another Khalil for Buffalo. He had 15 tackles in this game, a tackle for loss. He was just all over the field making plays, and he's one of the top senior linebackers. So, showing against an upper-level competition that he can go out there and make plays. That's going to go ahead and wrap it up. I hope you guys enjoyed this Week 4 college football or NFL draft prospect review, just kind of looking at how these prospects did. The best way to get these, hit that subscribe button here on YouTube. Get those subscribers up. That way, whenever one of these comes out or my other videos, you can get a look at that. Make sure you're hitting up NFLDraftGeek.com. We have daily content 365 days of the year. So now during college football season, it's ramping up. We have player rankings, mock drafts should be coming out. We have NFL content, college football content. So plenty there to watch. But thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at draft_Brian at NFL Draft Geek. And thanks for watching.